Leanne Dalziel.
Mr Speaker, I was first elected to represent the electorate I do in 1999, the year that Labor became the government. In the 9 years we were in government, I saw a change of almost unimaginable proportions in a part of my electorate that had suffered most under the 2 decades of economic restructuring and the 1 decade of ripping apart the social fabric that held communities together. Mr Speaker, when the renewal of Aranui began, I hoped for good results, but I did not for 1 minute really expect quite the extent of the gains that were made over that period in time. When the government changed in 2008, I hoped that Aranui would be resilient enough to withstand the changes that they would bring with them, and also strong enough to maintain the momentum that had been built up over those years. I'm pleased to say that despite the odds, they are succeeding. But this government is not making it easier for them. In fact, it's making it much, much harder for them. And this is despite the fact that the Aranui Community Trust has proven that it knows how to work in partnership with central government, local government, with NGOs, and also with all of the service providers that have an engagement with that community. They have a long-term strategic plan which they revise every 5 years, and they have an annual business planning process. So it's a very, very strict process that they have in place. Both of those plans, the business plan annually and the strategic plan every 5 years, is based on a needs analysis that has been professionally prepared and updated in consultation with the community and all its stakeholders. What a great model they have there in Aranui. This is an amazing community which has given me real hope about what the future holds for an area that has been written off in the past by successive governments, and also, I think, by the wider Christchurch community. Even the response of the community to the tragedy of the murder of Tricia Lowy and Rebecca Somerville with the candlelight vigil to remember the victims of violence and to commit to a community free of violence, that's the sort of thing that makes me really proud to represent them here in Parliament, and also my wider Christchurch East electorate. So why am I focusing on Aranui when we're addressing the Prime Minister's speech to the House at the beginning of this calendar year? And it's really because, as Phil Goff says, the government must ensure that it considers the needs of the many and not just the privileged few. That's really why I want to speak to this in this way. And I've noticed that the previous speaker talked about the need to grow the cake, and we all agree that we should grow the cake. I think what we're concerned about on this side of the House is we cannot for 1 minute allow struggling communities to be left with nothing but the crumbs. And that's always the risk when someone is going to slice and dice the cake in the way that the government has announced today. This government has been chipping away at the very underpinnings of Aranui's transformation. We didn't hear that in John Key's speech today, did we? He did not draw attention to the things that his ministers have been doing that are quietly chipping away at the foundations of a community like this. And let me just run through a few of them. The ACE funding cuts. In my electorate, Aranui High School has completely lost all of its funding for adult and community education. That has destroyed adult and community education in Aranui, and it has really set back Aranui in its ambition, because I'll tell you what, that high school was ambitious for its kids and its communities. It set them back about 3 years, provided we get back into government in 2011, which I'm certainly very ambitious to achieve as well. But it's really set back their ambition to become a community college. That's what they want to be. They don't want to be a high school. They want to be a community college that meets the needs of their whole community, and they are very well placed to do that, given that they're in the middle of a rebuilding program at the moment. And I'm going to the opening of the new technology block tomorrow, and it's going to be fantastic. And I'm pleased to hear the National List MP I don't know if he's going to be there or not, but I hope that he is. I hope that he's there. I hope that he's there backing the school, the only secondary school in Christchurch East. Mr. Speaker, what the government has really missed in terms of that whole idea about community education is that whole question around infrastructure. It was supported by a mixture of volunteer and professional staff in terms of that creating a cross-fertilisation of talent, I guess I would call it, between schools and communities. Aranui was no exception. And we've had, I'm surprised that Aaron Gilmore is actually kind of chipping away on this because he was one of the ones that mocked the names of the courses that were being run at Aranui High School that was actually designed to attract people to learning opportunities that might have been considered to be daunting or unappealing otherwise. Actually, this school had done a fantastic job of reaching out into a community and getting people that had fallen out of the education system back engaged in the education system, and I would have thought that member would have thought that was a good thing, but obviously not. Mr. Speaker, they just so don't get it about adult and community education. When this was pointed out to the Prime Minister, well, I think he's a little bit like Skipper the Penguin. I don't know if members in this House have seen a movie called Madagascar, but someone pointed it out to me. And in that movie, Skipper the Penguin, whenever anything goes wrong, just smile and wave, boys, smile and wave. And that's really the attitude that we've got from the Prime Minister. And then the community nurse employed by Actis, who is out in the community making sure that children and their parents are fully engaged with the health care they need. Mr. Speaker, her funding's been cut. No funding for a bottom-up initiative that works. Mr. Speaker, we were told that only the bureaucracy would be cut in health. We were told it was out of the back office and onto the front line. Well, what about the closure of the Union and Community Health Centre? One of their centres in Christchurch has had to close. The funding's been pulled from that so it could go to other services. How about the 1 hour a week of home help that has been ripped out of the homes of so many elderly people in my electorate, which is absolutely outrageous. A phone call from somebody they've never met, they're 85 years old, they get a phone call at home, this person says, I'm ringing from the DHB and I'm just checking up. I know you had an operation a couple of years ago and I know all of this personal information about you, but can I just update myself on that? And actually at the end of the conversation, you don't really need 2 hours a week to help you clean your house, do you? Just 1 hour a week will do for you. And they're doing it over and over and over again. And what would the Prime Minister say about that? Just smile and wave, Tony, smile and wave. Mr. Speaker, what about the training incentive allowance that enabled so many of my constituents to get a tertiary education, become a nurse, a teacher, a social worker, or get a degree in social policy because you couldn't quite hack the social work course when you're responsible for a child, as the Minister for Social Development would understand. The Prime Minister's speech said 100 DPB recipients off the benefit and into work would save the welfare system over their lifetime $10 million. Why did they rip that money out of the training incentive allowance, which gets them into a good job? Well, I bet Paula Bennett took the advice she got from the Prime Minister on that one, which is just smile and wave, boys, smile and wave. And don't get me started on ACC. I've had case after case after case in my office as they have clearly been advised to knock people out of the system without any due process. Mr. Speaker, in the area of jobs, Aranui has been affected like so many other areas in my electorate. But for the first time, I'm meeting people who've never been in a work and income office in their lives. They've been told, this is a true story, someone was told by a work and income official, just dumb down your CV. Well, how about that for a pearl of wisdom? My constituent said to me, how do you dumb down Chief Financial Officer? Maybe it would have been better if the officer had just said, smile and wave, just smile and wave. Mr. Speaker, I felt the Prime Minister's speech was very disappointing. All words and no action, not ambitious for New Zealand at all. He continues to say he wants New Zealand to match Australia and ignores the fact that everything National did during the 1990s was what separated Australia and New Zealand from the Employment Contracts Act on, from their decision not to increase real, and we actually managed to get real incomes starting to track again towards each other. Mr Speaker, I just think that this has been a very disappointing day, devoid of a plan, another lost